Hello and welcome, everybody. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Heather MacKay, the founder and CEO of HM Pinnacle Consulting. I have about I'm going to age myself a bit. I've got about 25 years in people operations, organizational structure, development, leadership. That's kind of what my passion is and what I do. And I am lucky enough to get to talk about one of my favorite topics with my counterpart here, John, and I'll let him introduce himself in a second. But why we chose this particular topic is we are huge believers in leadership and the influence leadership has inside of an organization with their teams. And the more leaders understand that, the better developed teams they have, the stronger cultures they have, and the better retention, which is kind of the topic we're going to talk about. But I just want to start out by saying leaders need to be really, really engaged with their teams because whether they realize it or not, they have more influence on an entire employee's life, not just the 8 to 5, but what they do outside of work as well. And when leaders realize that and they communicate that way and they lead that way and they build into their teams that way, people stay. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But I'm excited to get to work with you on this one, John.
Yeah, so my name is John Mencheski. I've been in operations for 25 plus years. I've ran multiple sites across the country, been on a senior leadership team, and I just love growing teams.
Yeah, and I think that anyone who's here who has a passion for either people operations or just business operations in general, just drop a 1 into the comments. We'd love to see, kind of which direction. A 1 if you're into business operations and a 2 if you're into people or HR operations. We'd love to see kind of what your guys' bent is. But the reason that we are kind of unique about doing this is we're coming in from 2 very different directions. And I know that you have had stories in previous organizations about your people operations or your HR operations and how you've struggled from an operational perspective. But we come at it from 2 very different perspectives. But what the thing is we have one thing in common, which is the development and passion for people. And so we bring a unique style from both sides and come to kind of a common conclusion where we're able to develop organizations from the inside out by being on the ground, front and center with the employees, which is kind of what we're going to talk about. And I'm excited. I'm going to bring up a question that I have for you. And I know you have a ton to talk about on it. So one of the things that I notice is a huge catchphrase or term that people are working on is, how do we attract and retain attention, or excuse me, how do we attract employees and retain them? And it's all well and good to attract new employees or new team members. But what I think we're struggling with as a society and in business in general is how we retain. How do you keep your good people, right? 100%. And so I guess my real question for you today is, why do great people stay?
That's a great question. And I'm going to, if Heather knows this, I'm not a movie buff, but I'm going to use a phrase from a movie. And what I'm going to say is you guys can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. And what I mean by that is this, is don't be the reason. Don't be the leader or manager. And if you're a manager, let's learn how to be a leader. But don't be the person that's leading a team. That is why people want to leave.
Yeah.
Because that's where it starts. Like when people want to leave, it starts somewhere, right? And you got to, as a leader, step back and look in the mirror. You got to take a hard look right away. And don't be that leader that is the reason people want to leave. That's where it starts in my book, right?
Yeah. And I should have caveated before we started that you will get nothing but absolute truth from John. Sometimes it seems like more of like, maybe he's smacking you upside the back of the head. But I appreciate that because I think it's critically important that we as leaders have those frank and honest conversations about how we grow.
And I think we overlook it. Like, it's the simplest thing to correct. The simplest thing to correct is how you're showing up for your team. And trust me, it's a daily thing. Maybe it's an hourly thing, but it's doing a check to come back and say, hey, am I creating an environment for people to do their best work all the time with the boundaries set? And that's just something where it starts. If we're not starting with ourselves and we're always starting with others, you're just creating issues.
I have to agree completely with you. I think this goes back to that leadership tool that we have that's a mirror. Right. So I think as a leader, our job is first and foremost to look in the mirror, right? So are we self-aware of how we are interacting with people? Are we self-aware of, like we started with this conversation, right? Do we remember how we left the last conversation with each of our team members before they left at the end of the day? And that is a hard one for leaders. We're so busy. We just really are. And sometimes we're very frustrated with people. I will say I've had one of those today as well. So I walk exactly what I talk, that we need to be careful as leaders that we are taking care of ourselves before we take care of our team when it comes to our attitude, our personality, our engagement, all of that, right?
And I think dive into that a little bit. So when some people may hear take care of yourself, that means I'm going to take care of myself to take care of people better, right? I'm going to make sure I'm showing up with the right attitude. I'm going to make sure I'm showing up to each conversation the way that person needs me to. And that's not easy to do, because I think there's the other part is when we're leading, we have to understand we're leading everybody. Everybody needs to be led a little differently. So there again, you got to show up differently and you got to understand what that is. And then when you're done having a conversation, you got to go to that mirror thing. You got to get good at going, hey, next time, man, I'm doing a lot of that lately, right? You always gotta come back and go, hey, I heard what they said. You know what? They're right. Right. I got to do a little better as well. And that's part of it is taking that look and then making that change.
So give that example. You and I were talking about it earlier, but you were mentioning walking through the facility.
Yeah. So
this is a great way for leaders to actually, well, not always comfortably, but uncomfortably sometimes be told areas that they can improve on this.
Well, I think this kind of flows into the connection piece of, as we're trying to connect with people, as we're showing up in different situations, our connection starts when we don't even know it. So this was 28 years ago.
I think you just aged yourself.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But I was at the supervisor level, and somebody stopped me one day and they said, people are afraid of you. And I was like,
was that hard to hear?
It was hard to hear. It was, I don't think hard was the right word. It really affected me. And I'll explain how, right? Is people said, hey, people are afraid of you. They don't want to talk to you because when you walk by, you have this look on your face like you're just mad at the world, right? Well, I was young in my career. I was just getting going and I was trying to do a great job. And I was always thinking about the next thing we had to do, the next task, how to move people around and everything, right? And I had to step back, and that was the start of learning how to connect with people, learning how to connect with people that you may not even talk to, but may see you walk through the site or location once, twice, a week, a day. Well, so here's what I ended up doing. I bought a smiling necklace. So I wore this necklace for like 5 years. No, the office I have now, for those of you that know me, there's a big smiling face in my office that I have currently, that the group that I used to work with sent me, and I keep that, and that's a reminder every day that, hey, you got to remember that connection starts just by walking by people.
It does. And if you're not one of those people like me who would ever put a big giant smiley face necklace on or in my office, but I will say that what I took from that and what I learned from that is, are we creating the type of environment that great people want to choose coming into every day? That's the retention question that we should be asking ourselves as leaders, right? I've already found the right people. Am I investing in them and letting them see me in a way that they feel that this is a great place for them to grow? That's one of the questions that we have to ask as leaders. And that goes back to that mirror, right? So are we evaluating how we're interacting, the things we're saying and choosing, the way we walk through a building, right? Those are critically important things that we as leaders need to remember is part of why great people stay. They stay for leadership. They stay for engagement. And we'll get to the other parts of it, but every one of you knows this. I mean, this isn't something that's going to come as a revelation. People leave because of leaders. They don't leave because of the job. And so we own that. And part of that starts with looking in the mirror. Part of it starts with that self-accountability or self-awareness of what it is that we are portraying out to all of the people on our teams or the rest of the organization. And as we just learned from what John said, it's not always verbal, right? It's not always the pat on the back. Sometimes it's just how we show up when we walk through.
And here's one thing I'll say too. I mean, I didn't take feedback the greatest when I was younger.
None of us do, right? Even today.
I think I'm maybe learning how to take it a little bit better than I did 28 years ago. But I will tell you, when you listen, and I go back to that, I didn't like to hear that, but I listened. And here's the thing. That was 28 years ago. I'm still working on that today. Like, that's a part of who I am. I look at that smiling face every day when I leave my office, and it helps me. I don't get it right every day, but that's part of it as leaders. We just got to remember that you got to keep working at it, right?
Yeah, it's true. So culture really is reflected in your leadership behaviors. And if you don't think that, then you really need to step back and realize, no different than what we just talked about, leaders are the reason employees stay or go. So part of your culture is exactly what your behaviors are. What are you tolerating from yourself and from your team, really? And then are you, like John pointed out, are you making sure that you're making your team feel like they're a part of you, like it's important that they're there? And that's knowing people's names. So this is a big one for me. And I know it's going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but if you're a leader and you don't know all of the names of your team members, first of all, shame on you. Now it's my turn to hit somebody in the backside of the head. But shame on you. As a leader, you definitely need to know their names. You need to know a little bit about your team. That's how they know that you care, that it's them and not just a body in that seat. And so making sure that you're taking the time to invest in those behaviors as a leader will help sustain your great employees inside your building.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think another one that could come across as warm and fuzzy as a reason that great people stay in your business really isn't warm and fuzzy, I guess, right? And that's all about connection. Connection isn't a soft word like we like to think of it in the outside world when you're connecting with, your family, your friends, that kind of stuff. Talk to us a little bit about what connection means inside of operations.
I mean, I think connection is just that, right? What connection do you have with each one of your team members, each one of your leaders?
Yeah.
And again, I go back to what I stated a little while ago, is that connection isn't the same with any of them. You have to be able to learn how
to be uniquely different for each. Yeah,
and it has to be, I'm going to say this, it has to be what they need. Like, this isn't it. When we talk about leaders, we're talking about people that are serving others. And I know this is a different topic, but we're not talking about managers, because then you're managing. If you're a leader, you're serving. And you need to understand how each person works. And not everybody operates the same. And that sometimes if you come in with one style, you got to be able to connect. And sometimes it's connecting on family, right? On just getting to know who they are, connecting how they show up, whatever it is. I mean, it's hard sometimes to put a word on it, but you got to be willing to step back and go, hey, this is how I'm going to connect with Heather today.
So right? I agree. But at the same time, I think that there are some commonalities in connection that all leaders can take, because sometimes leaders are like, oh my gosh, I'm not quite sure if this is a connection point or how to connect with them, right? Connection is when your employees feel known, when they feel seen, right? So connection can be everything from saying hello to them, to acknowledging what they've just said in a meeting or a conversation.
Smiling when you walk by.
Yeah, touche. Smiling when you walk by, right? So being seen. But being seen also means that they're being heard. So ask their opinions, get their input on what's going on inside the organization as well. That's part of connection. Connection means that your employee every single day when they come in has some kind of an engagement with you or part of the rest of the team. Every single day. If your employee doesn't ever get engaged with the rest of the team when they come in, why are they coming in? Yeah. Right? How do they feel that what they bring to the table has value or is important to the organization, right? And that's your job as a leader, to make sure that that connection and engagement is going on with all of your team and your employees, right? Everything from productivity decisions to knowledge about the business and the organization. When you come in as a leader, sometimes, and this has happened to me, I don't know if it's happened to you, I have employees. I think this, I remember a story you told me. I've had employees that have been in the company for 20 plus years who now work for me as the brand new leader. Mm-hmm. Connection for them is different. It's finding out what they've done over the last 20 years, is understanding the business from their perspective, right?
Yeah. And I'll take this a little different path too. Connection is, I think when you really look at trying to understand and lead your team, connection could also be you understand when someone comes in today, maybe you just understand that because you've learned them over time, that they're in a different spot today. So maybe connections is stopping and saying, hey Heather, you good? And you may get a, yeah, I'm fine, right? But if you do that enough and you create that connection, she may just say, you know, I'm having a tough day. That's enough to have that connection to say, hey, let me know what you need, right? I think that sometimes is we have to step into that when we see is that, hey, is everything okay? Like, because that's a connection, because of what you're doing in that moment is you're letting people know that you're not just caring about what they do, what they get done, their rates, things of that sort. You're showing them that you care about them, because just remember that the product doesn't take care of your people.
Your
people take care of your product, right? So you got to be able to have that moment, and you handle that, whatever that answer is. And here's the thing, you got to be ready for the answer, because sometimes people say, I'm fine. And sometimes
they don't. And you're like, crap, what am I going to do in this moment?
You're canceling the rest of your meetings because now you're dealing with it, but you're also building connection.
It's true. But what I'll say is those leaders who are listening to us going, I have way too many people to be sitting down and diving into what's going on with them every day. Well, then you're probably not structured right. And that's the people operations side of me coming into the play to say, if you have so many people that you are directly leading that you can't remember their names or have 2 seconds to ask them how they're doing, or if you notice they're not doing well, not engage with them, your setup is not correct. And you really truly need to reevaluate how you restructure your organization for success. Because the impact of that disengagement from your team, because you didn't have the time to double check with or check in on somebody, your productivity declines. They are not as engaged in the work that they're doing, right? Their trust erodes. It doesn't seem like you really do care. You may stand up in front of them and say, I care what all of you are thinking or feeling, but they're not going to feel that way, right? Their knowledge, it walks out the door with them when you allow that disconnection to become what is more important because of your chaotic, busy schedule. So rethink the number of people that you get a chance to lead. Make sure that it's in a what do I want? A sustainable way, so that you as a leader have an ability to keep those connections. Because I'll tell you right now, it's not a one and done. Mm-hmm. Leadership is exhausting, but you have to remember, you have to show up every single day for all of that team, and they need to know that they can come to you at any given time for that connection.
Yeah, and I've been through that a little bit myself, where I'll just share a little bit where, where I've had the 15, 14 people reporting to me, and then all of a sudden it went up to 20 some. And I will tell you, there's a certain point where you can't, that connection is no longer what it needs to be. And even though you may think you're doing a great job, right? To Heather's point, there's a limit on direct leadership. And I really think when I step back, it's, if you're over the 12 to 14, that's pushing it. I'm just saying, I think if you structure right, but you're above that, you're no longer doing anything right.
Yeah. You
effectively.
thank you. You're not being effective in leadership, right? And so as a leader, one of the things that you have to evaluate is how much of my time is in the tactical day-to-day work that I'm doing versus how much of my time is strategically allowing my team to engage and getting rid of roadblocks and moving the business forward. Because if this is even 50-50, you're failing. Right. So if it's not at least a 60-40, then you definitely need to revisit how that structure is set up and exists. But I think in this situation, that connectivity, one of the things that leaders should do, they're going to hate this. They're going to totally hate it, but they really should do an assessment. I'm not saying you need to go out and do an employee survey today, but you should, between your one-on-ones, your communication with them individually, whatever it is, or maybe it is an assessment like a physical paper, but find out if they're feeling like you're engaged with them. Find out if they feel like they can come to you with their questions, their problem. Go ahead.
No, so I think Heather's on to something. And when she's saying do an assessment, so 25 years ago, running my first facility, I was about
12 years old. Like,
yeah, I wish I was 12 years old because I'd be a lot younger. But I was probably about 2 months in, and I was just like, there's something missing. I was trying to figure out as a new team coming in, they were there before I was, and I decided I was going to put 15 questions together. And I just created myself. This was before I didn't know what a 360 was.
HR should probably be part of that if you guys have that in your team.
I mean, so I went ahead, I created this myself. I gave it to everybody, and it was interesting, right? I got great feedback. It wasn't easy to hear, but I will tell you, every one of those things I heard then, I've been working on since. And the one that I remember the most, right? Because this is what I work on. I could be one of the biggest micromanagers you ever met in your entire life. And I tell you what, I try to take that to the extreme on the other way now and give people the ability. Because what I had a gentleman, he was a maintenance guy, and he would come over help in another department when we got busy. And I think the question was, what can I do better? And he simply said, give me the time to actually do my work in between when you come and check on me again. Because every time I turn around, you're there and you're asking me, how's it going? What do you need? And he's like, sometimes it's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And here I was a young leader. My first site, that second site I was running, trying to understand how to, be there.
Yeah.
And here's what I'll tell you is that survey got me to understand it wasn't 100% at that time about putting people first or people-centered leadership, but it got me to understand that it was about how I showed up for them, not what they were doing for me.
Yeah. Right? No, and that's the one caveat that I'll warn you all on is if you're going to do an assessment, whether it's in person and you're asking for feedback or whether it's a paper form or an online form or whatever it is, be sure you're ready for the feedback. The worst thing you can do as a leader is ask for that feedback, either ignore it, get angry or frustrated by it. You have to be willing to hear it and to react to it in a respectful way for your team. Otherwise, you have just lost them, right? They're not going to continue.
And I also think there's a way, if you're setting up your organization, right, that when you do those, you also say, hey, remember, this is all about you. Be respectful, be honest, but be respectful, because at some time and point, we're going to do these the other way too. So remember, we got to do them all the same, right?
It's true. So I think another key area besides, the self-awareness or looking in the mirror, and then also the connection, and it is part of connection, but is communication. I can tell you in all of the organizations that HMP gets to support, this is the area that makes or breaks culture. Hands down, communication is critical. And as we look at the change in our dynamic of our workforces as well, and we have more of, the Gen Zs into the workforce, and I've talked to some people, I think Gen Alpha is going to be even more extreme, but communication is everything. Mm-hmm. And we're not talking about just the hi, how are you today? It's the communication about how the business is doing. It's the communication about how they're doing, right? So you need to make sure that you are working really hard at openly communicating and being transparent in what you can be. you're a business owner, you're a leader. Don't get me wrong. There are things that you just can't discuss with everyone on your team. But I will tell you, those should be far and few between. Your team should know if you're having a bad month, a bad week, your ROI is low, your shrink is high, whatever it is, right? Your team should know that, because we're going to talk about empowerment in a minute, but when your team feels like they're a part of the solution, they need to know the problem first, right? So communication isn't all positive. Communication is truly honest feedback about how the business is doing, about how they're doing, the team's doing, even how you're doing as a leader, right? Make sure that you are putting that into practice. That's super important in an organization. And it is the biggest culture breaker or the biggest culture builder there is.
And I'm going to take communication a little different spin on it. I totally agree with Heather 100%. The other side to communication is, so we all use Teams these days, right? Teams messages. I mean, if you're not using Teams, I mean, it can replace meetings. I love it, right? But not acknowledging somebody had a message, right? I just had this conversation this week and also emails, right? So now there's this great thing. You don't necessarily have to reply to every email. Well, there's a cool little thing up in the corner. It's acknowledgement of the thumb.
The thumbs up, the heart, whatever it is. I'm like,
but
oh,
here's what that's communication.
Yeah.
That's I heard you. Like
it goes back to what we were talking about. Employees want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be, exactly. They want to be a part of it. And something as simple as that. That's a really good point, though, because I know that I get over 300 emails a day. And I know that I am not capable. Well, I'm going to do a huge shout out for Meryl, which is my AI agent. Thank you, Shanae, for that. Because Meryl actually keeps me up on communication a lot better. So I'm able to keep up on some of those emails. But the personal ones for my team, those are ones need to be from me, right? No different than what John was saying, the thumbs up, the heart, the happy emoji, whatever it is, your team feels like you're engaged with them.
It's showing that you acknowledge that. And I think that's so critical. And I'm learning that more and more as I go every day, as I continue to grow in my leadership. Is there's nothing worse than having a conversation with someone and they're like, well, I sent you the email. Right. So again, when we talk about communication, I don't know how
many times I've heard that one lately.
Let's just listen to this. I just went from communication back to the mirror. Right. So now I got to look in the mirror on my communication piece and be like, hey, so I'm missing it. What am I not doing to show up and show people that I hear them when they're communicating with me? Because what they want to know is, hey, when I'm putting the time in, I want to know you're acknowledging it, that you're seeing it. Because if I'm doing the work and you're not, what's the purpose, right? And that's that look in the mirror. Like, trust me, I've had to pull the curtains back a little bit and be like, oh, that's scary.
Yeah.
Right?
But honest communication, it builds trust. It builds trust in your organization and with your teams. So don't look at it as I'm protecting my team by not giving them the information, or this is just for leadership to know. It's not true, right? Some of the best solutions to problems come when your team understands there's a problem that you guys are trying to address. Use that skill set that they have.
Transparency.
Yeah.
I'll just say transparency.
Yeah.
Transparency, there's something things you can't share, but when you're sharing the health of the business and where it's at with your team, and they know you can be transparent to the level you can be, transparency is a big deal.
I 100% agree with you. I think that's a great term. So as a business leader or a business owner right now, I just want you to take a moment and just question yourself. So what kind of communication is in your organization, right? Where's the breakdown? Do you have regular communication? Is that a cadence that's important to you as a leader? And do you make sure your leaders are communicating with their teams as well? Because this one's a huge one for keeping the great people engaged, right? If you don't want to lose your great people, you want to make sure that they're getting enough information from you. That entire transparency, I think, is important. I think another thing that's super important, and this one I know I'm going to have to eventually stop you on, but one of the things that's super important to keep great people in your building is empowering them, right? Empowerment with accountability is critically important, and we'll talk about what that means. But you have got to let go of the reins, right? The minute you
100%.
hold everything or micromanage it, you have lost the ability to keep those people. They're going to go find a place where they can excel and that they have the ability to own the job that you have hired them to do. I have a conversation that I've had with a business leader, and it was so frustrating for him because one of the things he said was they hired me because of the skills that I brought from the other organizations I worked in. And then I got here and they didn't want me to use any of them. They wanted me to do everything the way that they did it and allow them to control the environment and the situation. And he said, I felt like it was a bait and switch. I got here with the idea that all of these skills and knowledge and expertise that I bring to the table was coming with me and I was going to bring value to the organization. And then it was all stripped away from me. Don't do that as a leader. Make sure that you understand that when you hire somebody and you hire great people, they do not want to be micromanaged. Great people do not want any type of chaos either. They want to feel that they own their jobs. They want clear expectations. They want ownership with accountability. They want to be held accountable. Yeah. They don't expect a free reign, right? Yeah. They want fairness. And that's what protects cultures, right? Is an ability to empower your leaders. And I know that you are dying to bring something up here.
I thought you were going to talk the whole time there. Yeah, so it was pretty good. You were calling me out, right?
I'm passionate about it, but I know that this is something I learned from you.
Here's what I'll say is 90% of the people that in all of the organizations that are listening today always want to do a great job, right? And here's the thing, as leaders, we have to set the ability, the environment, the culture for people to do their best work. Yeah. Right? Again, if I'm leading, go back to what I said earlier. If I'm leading 14 people, the first thing I got to realize is I'm not doing 14 people's jobs. And if I think I am, well, then I'm the first problem that someone's got to take care of. I'm there to make sure they're all in a situation to do their best work. Let's create an environment so they're empowered. Let's set boundaries. What are the boundaries? I always use any sport you want to use. There's always boundaries. The referee comes out, right? Yeah. Set boundaries. Hey, you can do whatever you need to do, but once you get to the white line, if you work in a lean world, they talk about pulling the end on cord. You talk about sports, the timeout. We gotta get together, right? And then when I go back to what Heather said, I've had people when I said empower, they're like, "Oh, we're not gonna." People don't get to do what they want to do. No, when you empower people.
Yeah, where does people think the empowerment means they get to do what they want to do? That's not what it means.
In a people-centered organization, you empower people. You hold a harder accountability because you earn the right to. Because here's the part. I jump out of my shoes sometimes because if you empower me, you set accountability, I am going to work even harder.
Yes.
There's no way, no micromanagement that you are ever going to do to me that's going to get me to work. When you start allowing me to care about the business as much as you do or more, yeah. I'm telling you, it changes because now people show up and we talked about connection earlier. They start to appreciate that you give empowerment and you hold accountability, and they want to always do more. Yeah. Right? It's that spot to give the people the ability to care about the business. And I know there are business owners and CEOs out there and CEOs out there that are like, "Ooh, you always got your 10%, but your 90% is what you're going after, and they'll help take care of the rest."
Yeah.
When you let people care, because just remember, there's nobody. I'm just gonna say this. There's a very few amount of people that get up and say, "Hey, I want to go to work today and do a bad job."
Yeah.
I want to go to work today and I want to come home and maybe if it wasn't the greatest day, it doesn't always have to be a great day, but I can still be in a good mood because
Yeah.
I'm working hard, right? In a good environment.
It's true, right? Great people get frustrated when leaders tolerate poor performance, but they also get frustrated when leaders don't allow them to show you they can excel, right? It's that idea that if we are the only person making decisions in a business, the business is never going to be any better than just us, right? And that's what leaders need to take in consideration with empowerment. We are not giving people the keys to the castle to run amok, right? We're giving them an opportunity to lead their areas of the business. We brought them in because they had great skills and they're excellent employees and they have terrific knowledge. Let them use it, right? Let them bring that to the table with accountability wrapped around it, right? And accountability isn't punishment. I want to rephrase that because some people think that that means to get smack on the hand. No, it's not. Accountability means they're going to bring you the good and the bad that's happened, and you as a leader are going to work through that with them, coach them, make them accountable to it, but also help them understand how to fix those problems so they don't happen again. That's part of that.
Yeah, and just a little bit on accountability, right? Is when we talk about accountability, 100%, accountability is owning it.
Yeah.
It good or bad, right? It doesn't. You own it. That's all it is. Is you own the outcome, but you're accountable. And then let's just go into the leadership thing just a little bit. In this situation, when you're empowering people, you're coaching, teaching, supporting. In some cases, you're listening to, when things didn't go well. Well, you're giving encouragement in that moment because that's what you are. You're a coach and a teacher. Like when you're in the true concept of leadership, that's what you're doing. You're coaching and teaching. And ironically, those boundaries get a little further apart, and that accountability. And trust me, I'll speak to this. I've set some pretty high accountability. I push people sometimes.
Yeah.
When I give them the empowerment, I also bring the standard up a little bit and be like, no, here's what we're going to do. Well, people want to strive, right?
They do.
Nobody ever wants to go to work and work at 75%. Be like, well, sure would be nice to use the 20%, but have it just sit there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what we were talked about in the beginning, right? As leaders, we need to understand that we're impacting people's entire lives and they are bringing that best self to work when we give them our best selves as leaders, right? So when we are investing in the communication, in the accountability, in the commitment, in the connection, right? When we're investing in our teams that way, especially the really great people that we don't want to lose, they're taking that and they're seeing that and they're wanting to give us the same back, right? They're going to give you the best they've got in that process. But the worst is the opposite side. So when you aren't investing in those great people and they are walking out the door, that cost of losing those great people is huge, right? Recruiting costs, you have training costs, you have productivity loss, team disruption. Everything happens in a really poor way when that occurs. So we need to be very careful to make sure that we're not losing our great people. There's a bigger cost in that than there is in taking the time to invest in those people to begin with.
Yeah. And I think just on that note is just understanding that when we put forth the effort and we create a people-centered leadership, when you really care about people, they do great things.
They do.
It's just one of those things that ordinary people do extraordinary things. And we just need to create the environment for people that do their best work.
Yes, I agree. So our final challenge for you guys is really to look back at how you as leaders are communicating with your team, right? Are you making great choices in what you communicate? Are you making sure you know their names, that you are engaging with them when you have a chance to, that they're heard and seen? Are you assessing your ability as a leader to make sure that you're showing up for them, right? Creating that environment worth choosing to stay in or to come back tomorrow in.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd add to the challenge?
I just hope everybody learned a little bit, and don't be afraid to look in the mirror because it all starts there.
Yeah, because great people are going to stay when they feel that connection. So it's our job as leaders to give them that connection. Communication needs to be strong, expectations need to be clear, and leaders consistently need to show up, like
Yep.
John always says. So I just want to thank you guys for taking time this evening to hang out with us and to learn a little bit more about leadership. If there's anything we can do to support you or help you, whether it's in people operations or leadership, or hey, just double checking that your transparency, or if you want to create an assessment on paper.
Don't call me.
Yeah, exactly. Just reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We are excited to be able to partner with you guys and help you guys build better, stronger teams. So with that, I guess I'll say thank you very much and have a terrific rest of your day.